Hello everyone, my name is Fletcher and welcome back to Xbox Nation. Today I have a very different video from the usual here on the channel, and I'm actually bringing you a preview of Holdfast Nations at War, the epic Napoleonic era multiplayer shooter which is coming to all consoles next month after a very lengthy stint over on PC. You may have seen the game spread out all across over social media, as there's been tons of clips with some very iconic moments.
Scotland forever!
Now finally this July we will get the full release, and this video contains an exclusive sneak preview of what you can expect on Xbox consoles, no holes barred. Yes, I am the first person outside of the developers to play this game on console, so a big shout out to the team over at Anvil Game Studios for making this possible. Of course, all footage today is subject to change prior to the final release, but with that, let's dive in and see what you will experience in Holdfast very soon. So, to give you a bit of background if you somehow never seen this game before, Holdfast Nations at War is a large-scale multiplayer-focused shooter set in the Napoleonic era. You can think muskets, bayonets, cannons, and then dozens of players clashing out on land and sea. As I mentioned before, this was originally released on PC back in 2020, but it's garnered a very loyal following, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. Holdfast though pits players in historical battles where teamwork, communication, and tactics really matter just as much as your aim, but sometimes it can transcend into utter chaos, and it works brilliantly. What I wanted to cover in the preview today are 5 points which will get you very excited, and why you will need to definitely keep this game on your radar when it arrives next month. So first up, we have the size of the battles and how chaotic it can actually get with this amount of players. Of course, we have seen so many games live and die by their player counts over the years, and sometimes bigger really doesn't mean better. As we saw with Battlefield 2042 and its awful netcode and hit detection upon launch, somehow the team over at Anvil Game Studios have really made this large player count work. I don't mean 12 versus 12 or just 32 player lobbies. I'm talking about 150 players, huge, sprawling, chaotic, and absolutely glorious. There is just something so special about charging enemy lines with a large group of other players just to see you getting mowed down or blown away by a cannonball, whilst hearing some guy with a drum blaring out Barbie Girl at the top of their lungs. The massive multiplayer element really solidifies that intensity in combat, as you feel almost utterly helpless, especially when the rest of your team is destroyed and you're the last man standing. Now, across the game, there are many different roles and classes for you to pick from, and believe it or not, each of them have their own progression systems, abilities, buffs, unique equipment, and so much more. There is an extensive list of different customization options and weapon types in the menu screens, as you can see right now, and even after about 8 hours of playing so far, I've had no chance of unlocking even a slither of what's available. Of course, all of this does change based on the matches that you dive into, so more on that now. In terms of classes, you have your line infantry with single shot muskets, long reload times, and sticking with your units. You then have the artillery crews that operate cannons together by aiming, loading, and firing as each player doing a job, and then finally the officers and leaders, which can issue real-time voice commands guiding entire squads into position. It all feels less like a modern shooter and more like a living, breathing reenactment, only with memes and musket balls, and it's a bloody good time. Now, if the land battles really aren't your sort of thing, wait till you see the naval side of Holdfast. That's right, you can actually take to the sea, where entire crews will work together to sail, aim, and fire massive warships, and these scenarios can get pretty intense. There are even moments you will land on beaches to try and storm a rather large emplacement, and the hail of cannon fire and muskets billowing can be pretty awesome. The final feature, which I've yet to try out myself though, as there weren't actually any servers live at the time of me making this preview, is the World War I element, and this is definitely a different but welcome take on the traditional formula. Of course, the premise is exactly the same with the land element of this game, and instead you'll be taking control of either Axis or Allied forces and trying to take control points across different maps specifically for this era. I have done some more digging, and the footage that you're seeing on screen now are from others within the community, and it does look pretty awesome. Now, one of the most unique things about Holdfast Nations at War is its incredibly active roleplay community, and it really does add a whole new layer to the overall game. Beyond the musket battles and cannon fire, you will find players that are fully immersing themselves in a historical reenactment by marching in formation, following officer commands, and then even playing period music on fifes and drums. There are entire servers that are really dedicated to this roleplay, where players take things pretty seriously. That can be by line infantry holding formations, officers shouting authentic battle orders, and regiments that operate with real military structure. It's not just about shooting. You can take on roles like drummers, flag bearers, medics, or naval crew, all of which contribute to the immersive chaos. Thanks to that excellent proximity chat feature though, everything does feel alive, as you'll hear speeches before charges, sea shanties on deck, or just someone with a full-on British accent yelling "hold the line." Some players even join long-running regiments that meet regularly for organised battles, complete with training drills and historical ranks. I was actually lucky enough to get accepted into one of these brigades, which have their own Discord server like many others out there. The community in this game really is incredibly welcoming, especially if you want a bloody good time within that role-playing realm. But it's not all serious, of course. There's always room for humour, with bagpipe players charging solo into gunfire, or just people shouting memes mid-battle. It's that sort of balance and immersion and absurdity that makes roleplay in Holdfast just so special. Whether you're in that for the history, the comedy, or just want to live out your own Napoleonic war fantasy, it's an experience that you won't get anywhere else on Xbox consoles currently. Another feature that really does set Holdfast Nations of War apart though, especially from its competition, is just how well it sort of blends that genuine historical authenticity with completely unpredictable, often hilarious chaos. The developers have gone all in on that Napoleonic era, from the uniforms, weaponry and formations, to the music, ranks and voice lines. You will feel like you've stepped into a living history book until that book gets blown apart by a cannonball. The game really captures that slow, deliberate pacing of 18th and 19th century warfare, where muskets take time to reload, accuracy is very shaky at best, and fighting in lines is actually the most effective tactic. But in the middle of all of that realism, Holdfast gives players the freedom to be, well, completely ridiculous. The authenticity really does ground you, but the chaos makes every moment feel fresh and exciting enough to dive into it once again. It really is because it's all player driven that no two matches are ever the same. One might feel like a proper historical reenactment, while others descend into beautiful organised madness. That mix of realism and ridiculousness is the magic of Holdfast. It respects the history, but it also knows how to have fun with it. Obviously, a big bit of this preview, which I can't state much about at the moment, is the performance, as this is not yet the final build of the overall game, and as I mentioned, it is all kind of subject to change. I can say though that during my time with this game, I've been playing it solely on my Xbox Series X, and we do get a lovely option of both performance and quality options out the gate, and I really did enjoy that frame rate aspect of the performance mode, as I do with most multiplayer games out there. It was very smooth throughout, and I have no doubt this will be the case when the game launches next month. Of course, controls were going to be a very big aspect of this game when it comes to consoles, and I have to say it's pretty okay so far, but I do hope there's some improvements prior to its launch. You can tell the aiming here is still very much acquired for a PC taste, as the control of recoil and aiming down the sights can get incredibly difficult at times, especially when playing against other PC players. You might be the same distance away and see a PC player first, but due to the aiming difficulty on consoles currently, you will 9 times out of 10 lose that duel. It is a shame, as all other elements such as button layouts and speech options are perfectly implemented, but I do feel this is one area where I do hope some changes made prior to its launch. Of course, with any of this today, you do have to keep in mind this is all subject to change, and by no means are the controls game-breaking for any console user. To be honest, I've been loving my time with Holdfast, and I cannot wait for the full console launch on Xbox and other consoles this July, and so far the devs have nailed this console port, control woes aside. The camaraderie, the memes, the intense combat and thrilling soundscapes makes Holdfast potentially one of my favourite multiplayer games that is coming to Xbox this year. I've been waiting so long to get my hands on this game, as I never did get the chance to play it on PC, and I think due to this huge injection from console players, it will bring long-term success to this absolute gem. As mentioned, this game does launch on the 9th of July for both of the Xbox Series consoles, and I have a feeling it will be available for that low cost price of just $19.99 as we see over on Steam. Of course, that is subject to change as well, as there's no official pricing, but it is a pretty low price barrier, especially for such a great multiplayer game. So, will you be diving into Holdfast on launch, or do do you have any other questions you have about this console launch, you'll have to let me know down below. Remember to like this video if you want to see more preview videos like this, and subscribe for more Xbox content every single day. Whilst here though, why don't you check out the video on screen now of the massive Xbox update, as there has been a ton of incredible news announced over the past week.